Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. This is another impromptu video. It is around 9:30 in the night, and I was actually sitting down finally at my table to make a specific post about the revision timetable or something, which I used when I was preparing for Neet PG, and the next Neet PG is on March 12th. That is like 40 days from today. So I thought of making that video and suddenly I felt uh no. Actually, I thought of making a post. Then suddenly I felt that the post wouldn't be sufficient. There's a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to say before actually giving or making my specific timetable. If I am going to write an exam, though no, I'm not going to write, but just in case, if it was me who is preparing a timetable, I would do a specific certain things. So then I thought maybe making a video would be a really good thing, but then it's 9:30. Will it be okay? So rest aside, I think the content is more important than the backgrounds or the time at which I'm filming it. So as you can see, I'm filming using my lamp here, so I hope it's okay. So without further ado, let's get started. So, as I said, before actually going into the timetable or something like that, I want to say that it's 40 days, that is a very little time, less than 2 months. And at this part of time, we have a lot of websites or platforms there telling us to, availing us, giving us a lot of last minute revision videos or the fast forward revision videos, which are like 1 or 2 hours where you can sit down and uh, listen to the whole subject. But if you ask me, my personal opinion is you to stick to the notes you have been reading since the beginning, or the notes you have written. Of course, listening and watching a specific thing helps us retain it for longer time, but at this part of time, listening to something which is, though it's the same subject, it is going in a different direction. The points are all new. Even though you have already written them, they comes out as new, and you tend to write it down. If you're someone like me, then that converts into a new format, and it gives out as a new notes. And then when you try to start revising it, it looks a little bit different and a little bit tough. So it's better at this part of time to stick to your notes which you have already written and which you have already revised again. So that would be a really good way of retaining your information for a longer time. The particular revision one which I'm showing you here, it will be making you to revise it twice. So it's really important that you are already revising the notes which you already know, which you have already prepared, instead of making them now new using other videos. So it's up to you. Like, if you're someone who retains better with a video, then go for it, but my personal view is don't go for the videos. At this part of time, it's really important that you have a specific set of notes, and you stick to that note, so that your pictographic memory improves, so that whenever you're answering a question, the first impulse you get your mind is from your notes and not from somewhere else. Because if you're watching a lot of videos, if you're watching a lot of notes, it makes it really tough for your brain to go to that specific part and gather the answer. So that's where I think you get to confused with two different answers. That's where it makes you uh, like pick between two different answers from two different sources. So stick to your specific personal source, especially if you're handwritten one. That makes a really good source for you to revise at this part of time. So my way of revising is I get to revise it multiple times through the same source, so that I can retain it to the much longer time. Like, it's the same as any other revision stuff. Like, you read something today, then after 7 days you read it again, after 1 month you read it again. But at this part of time, you have only like 40 days. So how I usually divide my revision schedule is I divide it into three parts, where you have the first part into like 75%, the second is like the 20%, and the last is the 5%. Like, it's 75, 25, and 5. So I just sat down to actually divide it, and I realized that if this video is going to be up tomorrow, you'll be having 39 days instead of 40 days. So if it's this would be probably uploading at 11 o'clock in the morning. So if you are watching this today on Monday, the 31st of January, then you'll definitely have 39 days to study and actually put this schedule into work. But if you're watching it after 4 or 5 days, even then I think you can match it up for the first 75% of the schedule, so that you can be in with the schedule for the next 15 and for the next 25% of it. So just calculate the amount of time it would be needing for you for specific subjects. If you have already read and revised a few of the subjects before, you can add them to the remaining schedule of the first 25 days, and then you can continue with the same schedule next. So, and also another point, I don't know if you want me to actually divide specific subjects for that particular time, because everyone is different while coming to the revision one. Because I usually take 2 days for medicine and surgery, and one day for rest of the subjects. And biochemistry, anatomy, I usually take 1 day, and then the physiology also 1 day. But then pathology or some things I take 2 days. But some people, they take the first year subjects for more days and the final year subjects for less time. So I think it's better to divide your days according to those subjects and read it accordingly. So as I said, the whole 40 days from tomorrow, that is from 31st of January to the 11th of March. So I'm going to give you up until 11th of March. So when you divide them all, the first 25 days, that is from 31st Jan to 24th of February, are the first 25 days. And between these days, you have to schedule your subjects accordingly. Like you have 25 days and you have 19 subjects. I mean, that meaning you get one subject for 1 day for each subject according to this plan. And you have extra 5 days, so you can add any other subject which might require a more time. So the major idea of this first 25 days is you get to revise every single point, every single thing, even if it's easier for you at this particular part of revision. That means you start from A and you end it with Z, and not leaving any other letters in between, from the first of the subject to the end. And if you're someone who writes while reading that subject, it's better you take up another notebook and write down anything which you feel is really tough to remember, or if you think that you might not remember after 1 or 2 days. That way you would concise your 100% of revision notes into like 50% of the revision notes, or 25% even. So this is like, according to this will be your first revision. And your first revision is supposed to be from A to Z, and you'll read every point, every part of the notes, even if it's the most easiest one or the toughest one. And you will write a few points which you think you might not remember when you read it for the second time. So that will be your another notes. I mean, if this is your first notes, the book 1, then your book 2 will contain the tough parts of book 1 which you want to read again in your second revision. So the first 25 days, I think since you have 5 days extra, and a few subjects could be done in a single day, it depends upon how well you have written your revision notes. Because usually my revision notes are from the source which I have used is the Bhagya, and my revision notes is usually, except for medicine, surgery, OBGYN and anatomy, I guess the rest all are very precise and very concise, so I can study it in a single day. So just decide it whether on how you want to divide them. But if you want a specific plan with what subjects to study at what day, then check out my Instagram post, which I'll be posting it tomorrow at 12 p.m. So that way you can have a revision schedule, a planned schedule, and you can actually change it, convert it according to your need. So that's the first part of revision. So you have to make sure that you read everything. That's the major thing. You definitely have to read. You shouldn't skip any part, and you have to complete it and write down the points which you don't feel comfortable with, which you think that you might definitely forget, and which you think which are or the points which you think that they're definitely going to be asked. I mean, the major part of studying at this hour is you have to be your own examiner. That way you can actually guess a few questions or the type of questions that might be asked. Since we have done the 25 days, you'll have the rest 15 days from the 40 days. So for this next revision, the revision part 2, you will take a 12-day revision plan. So here, instead of having an extra days, you have very few days. So like you have 19 subjects and 12 days. So since you have 12 days, it's very important that you have to decrease the amount of time of your revision for each subject. So this is when your book 2, which you use to prepare in the first revision, helps. So like you have very little time, and at this part of time you definitely have to revise the most tough parts, and the book 2 which you have prepared for this, which you have prepared, is helpful for this time. So for example, you have your anatomy notes of about like 100% of your anatomy notes, and you have converted it into 25 or 40%. So that for, and in the first revision it took 2 days for your anatomy to complete, but now instead of 100 you have only 40% one, and which is more tough for you, and which makes it really tough for you to remember. And this part of revision is where you use this 40% to again reinforce your memory, and again study them, read them, and then retain it for the more time. Why do you need again to write and again to study? This is that revising from your notes is a really passive process. It's not an active process where you sit down and write down whatever you have. And in order to make this passive process into a useful one, it's really important that you revise multiple times so that you can retain it. And why I'm saying you to stick to one source and write your own notes is, when you're writing, you have you put up all your concentration on that part, on that notes, and when you read it after a few days, like after 20 days, you already know what you have written, you already know where you have written. And when you're reading it for the second time, the chances are you retain it for the more time. The chances are you have the pictographic memory better, instead of reading from already written notes where you don't know anything about it, where it's not according to your wish, where I mean every notes, it has to be personalized, because the way I write is in points, but some people like to read it in a flowchart or in a mind map format. So that's really important that you write your notes and use that book 2 in your revision part 2, so that whatever the 25-40% of the notes which you have taken out from the revision 1, it helps you to prepare in less than 15 days. That is, in 12 days you get to complete all your 19 subjects. Again, for the bigger ones, you definitely have to give 1 day for each, but the smaller subjects like ophthalmology, ENT, or forensic medicine, psychiatry, they are a very tiny subject, and you can fit 2 subjects in 1 day. The most important thing is you have to be ready to study it on that part of the, you have to make sure your brain is ready to read it, and you have to be really thorough with reading it. It's important that you read everything and not skip any part. Again, when you complete these 2 revisions, it would be like 8th of March, and you have only 3 days left, that is 9, 10 and 11, 3 days before the exam. And I know, though I mean, most of the studies say that you read less the first few days, I mean few days before the exam, and at least don't read before the exam. But for me, I'm not I'm that kind of person who, if she doesn't read the before day or on that day, I would get really anxious and I might make more mistakes. So the last 3 days is when I keep my the final notes, which I always prepare, so that I get to read it just before the day. Like a few topics like the developmental milestones, or some formulas which are required in biochemistry, or the flowcharts and the mechanisms in biochemistry, or a few of the things which really require you the factual memory, the pharmacological things, the metabolism and all those stuff. They have to be revised again just before the exam, so that you can retain it, because they are very volatile, they have very low shelf life, and you might forget them. So the last 3 days is for that time where you take up your final book, I mean the book which you have been using from the beginning, where you write all those topics which you feel are really really tough for you. If you haven't been using that since the beginning of your preparation, no worries. If you haven't used that, starting from tomorrow when you're studying, since you're studying from the beginning and using all of that just pick up a small 100 pages notebook and write down all the things, not everything, the things which you believe, which you require to study just before the exam and on the day, on the morning of the exam. That's really important. So the last 3 days has to be for those topics which you have to study in order to remember the topics which are really volatile for you. Again, those are again different for each person. Like for me, the developmental milestones is the really tough one, and I'm really volatile to it. I have to read it. And it's the same with the hypersensitive reactions and the examples of those. So we have a few topics which we definitely want to read just 3 days before exam, and you have to make sure that you have a notes or information or just headlines of the topics which you think you have to read just before the exam, and use those 3 days, that is the 9th, 10th and 11th of March, to revise those few topics specifically. So that is the division of the revision schedule which I usually make, which I always make whenever I'm going before an exam, because as I said, I'm a really anxious person and I have to double and triple check before going to exam, and that is why I always make 3 kinds of revisions so that I get to revise everything multiple times. I mean, it's not easy to revise all the 19 subjects from the first to last, but I did it. So if I can do it, I think it's not a tough task for you to do. So you definitely have to like, if you think this plan would work, try it out and it would be really helpful. Yeah, writing your notes is important, and don't worry that while you're writing your notes the time might be not sufficient or it might take more time for you. Just write your notes just as because it's only you reading, so as long as you can understand it and you can remember it, write it down. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be really presentable or anything. And the other thing is, during these 40 days it's also important that you take your breaks, even if it is for half a day or even if it is for a whole day, because you don't want to burn out at this part of time. Because in these 40 days, if you are studying continuously, there will be a chances that just before a few days before exam you could get burned out and you would be leaving everything, you couldn't study, the concentration levels falls down, and it's really really hazardous for your prep. Because even though you have been reading for the whole year, if you get burned out just before the exam, it will be really dangerous and you don't want to do that. So whenever you feel like you are not much concentrated, don't take up caffeine in those times. Just take a few hours of break or go for a walk or read a book and just take your mind off that thing and come back again after an hour or two. It's okay to take a break of more than 3 hours at this part of time, because your brain is constantly studying, it is constantly active, and you definitely have to take a break. I know it's not easy to plan your breaks, because if I'm planning a break for on a Friday on this particular week, and then I feel like I'm not much concentrated on a Tuesday, then it's better to take a break on Tuesday instead of waiting till Friday and then getting burned out. So just look out for that, because it's very very possible at this part of time. And also the most biggest mistake we always make is, because you have a very less time, you think that it's more important that you concentrate 100% on your studies and leave everything else behind. But I would suggest that you keep one hobby with you, even though if you are going to an exam. Like if you are a person who works out a lot, who used to work out a lot, but you're thinking of leaving it behind just for the 40 days, I don't think it would be a really good idea. Just go for it, take 1 or 2 hours in the day and work out, get freshened up, and then sit down to study. Because since you have been more used to working out, if you get out of that habit suddenly, your brain would be nagging you to do it, you haven't done it, and then it sits in the back of your mind, and you couldn't be concentrating more. So it's okay, it's not unhealthy, it's actually healthy to put up with your hobbies, at least one hobby every day, so that you can give yourself some time, so that you can save yourself from burnout. So let it be working out, or for me it was reading a book. And actually my reading used to be really really more just before the exams, because that used to help me escape from this study mode and have relax my mind for some time, and I used to get back again really quick. So let it be any hobby, like walking your dog out, or going for a walk alone, or working out, or reading a book, or painting, or anything. Keep one hobby with you while you're studying, so that you can give some time for yourself, at least 1 hour in the whole day, so that you can reduce your burnout, reduce your chances of taking breaks or losing your concentration, and increase your chances of studying for longer hours. So that's it for today, guys. I hope I have made it possible and easier for you to understand how it's going to be, or how you can help. I mean, how you can do it. That's how I did it, and I hope I'm helpful. Uh, as I said, it's an impromptu video, so there's no script involved. It's everything that is coming on to my mind at this particular part of time. So this will be uploaded tomorrow, and the schedule of the particular date wise schedule of each subject will also be uploaded tomorrow. I'll try to upload it, so you can like reshuffle it or do whenever you like to do. One small tip is that whenever I make a schedule of the which subject I have to do on which particular day, I think I like to play with those. So I have a set of calendar in front of me, and I used to randomly write the subjects on that particular day, instead of thinking hard and finding out which ones to start first, which ones to do next. I used to write them down in a bizarre manner, like you fill out your bingo boxes, and then I used to set my mind according to that schedule, like if first is going to be anatomy, or first is going to be biochemistry, and then second is going to be medicine, or third is psychiatry. I used to set my mind according to the schedule instead of setting a schedule according to my mind, and that actually helped, because if you are thinking too much, it makes you even more anxious, and it makes you waste a lot of time. So just make it really fun. Just take out your calendar and fill out random dates where you want each subject. Like, don't think much, just fill out the subjects accordingly, and then you'll have a schedule which you can actually sit down and study according to that. So with that, taking a leave. Tomorrow is supposed another video was supposed to be up tomorrow, but then I thought this would be a really helpful one. Hope you like it. If you did, do like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and do let me know if you have any ideas, or if you want anything else for me to talk in here. Have a great day, guys, and good luck for your Neet PG 2022.